Hello, and welcome to episode number 255 of the Board Game Barrage podcast, a podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends, even when you're losing. I am joined by my friends Mark and Neelan. Say hello.
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 And if you're wondering why my voice sounds a little gravelly, it's because I carried the weight of the podcast on my back this weekend when I attended PAX Unplugged alone and had to sort of greet and say thank you and apologize on behalf of both of you for not coming to the con and also for all your antics on the show.
I think you were saying thank you on behalf of me and then apologizing on behalf of Neelan, probably.
Yeah.
Right? That
Yes.
feels right to me.
I did leave a mess in my wake last time I was in Philadelphia, so
That's right.
Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we are going to talk about the board games that we have been playing. Neelan is going to start us off with Sea Salt and Paper. Is that sea salt?
I think it's sea
and
comma
paper?
salt. Actually, you might be right, in fact.
Salt.
It might just be sea salt and paper.
I think it's the expansion of Heroes of Air, Land, and Sea.
I'm not seeing a comma, so I think it is just sea salt and paper, which is not how I thought it was in my head.
Okay, name one dessert, okay, that could not be made better with sea salt sprinkled on top.
Good question.
You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. It's a fact. Every dessert.
Jello. What about Jello?
I will say that my culture has a history of putting random in Jello. Like, have you ever had carrots in Jello?
What?
I think I might have actually. I think so.
This is real,
Sounds
Neelan.
terrible. I hate this. This is like when I first learned about sweet potato and marshmallow, and I was like, what are you guys doing over there?
That is incredible. Do not make fun of sweet potato and marshmallow because that is good. I just made a sweet potato and marshmallow casserole for Thanksgiving myself with my bare hands, and it was good.
Uh-huh.
That was your, the high culinary dining mark that you made?
I'll have you know, I made quite a spread for Thanksgiving.
I am actually genuinely jealous because having missed Thanksgiving entirely this year, could go for some Thanksgiving food.
My mom missed you too, Neelan.
Ah.
Sea salt and paper. Sea salt and paper. So we'll record it all the ways, and then we can't offend the designer because then we just put it back. Sea. No, there's probably only 2, I guess. Sea, salt and paper.
Well, the Spanish version is sea, salt and paper.
Oh my gosh.
You get it? Because that's yes in Spanish. Sea
Yes.
is also yes in Spanish.
Yes.
So that's why it's funny right there.
Senor. Yeah. And then Mark will take us to Chicago, Chi-Town,
And we're going fast.
city of my brother, to talk about Chicago Express. And then I will talk about so many games that we can't even list them in the upfront here because that's what I've been doing, championing the podcast. I'm out of breath by playing and champion so many board games. Neelan, kick us off with Sea, Salt, and Pepper.
So yeah, Sea Salt and Paper, which is a very different title now that I know that there's no comma in there, is a small little, let's call it a set collection card game. I have I've only played this in Board Game Arena, but I played this a bunch because it has a very simple rule set and I've kind of enjoyed it, especially as a 2-player game. I've kind of just dug the back and forth of this. The way Sea Salt Paper works is on your turn, you start with an empty hand, and there are 2 discard piles, which start with a card in them and a deck of cards. On your turn, you're going to start by taking a card. You're either going to draw 2 from the deck and discard 1 to either of those discard piles, or you're just going to take one of the face-up cards on the top of one of those discard piles. You're collecting sets of cards in order to accumulate points. For the most part, these work in pairs. So, for example, if I have 2 boats, that's worth a point. If I have 2 fish, that's worth a point. But each of these pairs of cards also has an ability where if you play them on your turn publicly. So if you declare, okay, I have this pair for a point, I also get a special ability. And some of those abilities can be quite powerful. Stealing a card from another player, taking new cards from the deck, even just taking a whole another turn. So you're definitely incentivized to play these cards out in public. The rest of the cards in the deck are an accumulation of sorts of things like, collect a pair to get this many points. If you get 1, you get this many, 2, you get this many, 3, you get this many points. Set collections of penguins and anchors and octopi and all sorts of things. Finally, there are also mermaid cards in the game. And these are pretty cool because if you have one of those, you're going to score whichever color of card you have the most of. But if you get all 4 of them in the deck, this is an instant game-winning shoot the moon type thing. And I mean game-winning because this is a game that plays over several rounds. And if at any point you have all 4 mermaids, you stop everything you're doing and you declare you've won the game. So there's that to look out for.
Wait, even outside of the rounds?
Like even outside of the rounds, yeah. Game is immediately over.
That's funny. Because it's like sometimes you don't even play these games through all the rounds, right? You just play
exactly.
a few.
Which is great because ordinarily you're playing to 40 points over several rounds. And the crucial thing in this, and I think that this is where the game is the way that every round ends. When you have 7 points, either in your public display or in your hand combined, you can say, okay, guys, round's over, everyone add up their points. And then you tally the points, score the round, and go on to the next round. Or you can say at that point, I'm going to take a last chance. And what this says is you're so confident that you're going to win the round that you're willing to give the other players a whole other turn. They get one more turn to like draw, play, etc., trigger any effects they were going to do, and so on. And you're still confident that you're going to have a higher score than them. And if that's the case, then not only do you score the cards in your hand, you also score that color bonus, kind of like I mentioned with the mermaids, where you score your highest number of a set of colors. But the other players that lost effectively against you only score their color bonus. Everyone only scores a lesser amount of points, and you score both the regular amount of points plus that bonus. But if you lose the bet, then you only score the color bonus and everyone else scores regularly. So there's this sort of push your luck incentive to say, like, I think based on what, the cards that people have played out publicly, based on what I think I have in my hand, I'm very confident that I'm going to win this. And that's kind of where I think that this public playing of abilities really sort of, comes into its own. There's almost this element of like, you're giving away how many points you have in your hand to some extent, but you're getting these really powerful abilities out of them. And on top of that, you're keeping an eye on what other people are taking from the discard piles. Is Kellen going for penguins this game? Is Kellen going for mermaids? Is someone, desperately trying to get that 4th mermaid to try win the game? There's a lot of just keeping an eye on the cards that are coming out into the discard pile, as well as what other people are playing, so you can sort of see what the scoring potentials are in the game. Because on top of that, the deck's not that big. Each of these cards only comes up 2 or 3 times in the deck in total. So it's very easy to track or just kind of get a sense of what's been taken, what's still in there, and so on. And I think for a game that is this simple and this delightful, just that little twist of gamesmanship of like keeping an open eye for what the game state is at any given point is kind of where it comes alive. And I really love that. But playing it on BGA obviously makes this somewhat easier because you can track back. But I can imagine playing this around the table, there just wouldn't be that much information that would be out of bounds there either. I'm kind of bearing one of the things I love the most about the game for loss, which is how lovely the art on these cards is. Every single card has a photograph of like an origami fold. So, folded paper boat or folded paper octopus. So all of these cards are described, whether they're mermaids, octopi, anchors, they're all just little lovely origami folds, which are delightful. Such a lovely aesthetic.
Yeah, it looks great. The box says that, this is all original origami artwork, and it does look lovely.
It looks like AI artwork.
What? How dare you?
Whoa, Neelan, how dare you support AI artwork publicly? Is this like a rummy variant? I was trying to wrap my head around how you described it, and it seems like it's just based on like melding sets and people seeing the sets that are out, and that changes what you want to go for, kind of.
That's really funny, actually, because as someone that's not like a card game enthusiast, I hadn't put that together in my head. But yeah, I guess so. I guess it's essentially a rummy game, but just with card powers. And yeah, I suppose so.
That's cool.
It's
cool.
neat, though.
Yeah.
Especially Kellen, I think, as the lover of small card games, I think this is way up your alley and one that you should definitely consider picking up.
Can you say sea salt and paper to me in Japanese?
I don't think I can. I don't think I mentioned that this is by Theo Riviere and Bruno Cathala, the latter of whom has been on a bit of a tear for me recently. I feel like there's 3 other games in the last year that I've just gravitated to of his, despite not really feeling super strongly about most of his previous designs that I've played, with the exception of Seven Wonders Duel, which I think is quite lovely. I've spoken a lot about having bounced off some of his bigger designs like Five Tribes. But yeah, that is Sea Salt and Paper by Theo Riviere and Bruno Cathala.
You've only played this at 2?
I have played this mostly at 2, and I think twice at 3.
And is there an appreciable difference in terms of how it plays at the 3 count versus 2?
Only just by virtue of the fact that, the nature of knowing exactly what one person is honing in on versus versus the 3. But other than that, yeah, I would say it still worked great at 3. I guess I'd be curious to see how it plays at 4, but you obviously wouldn't be capturing just that me versus you that I enjoyed a 2-player. But yeah, no, I think it would work just fine.
Cool. So after a long, long time since my last play of it, I got a chance to revisit Chicago Express. This is by John Borer, with the edition I was playing published by Queen Games, though this was originally released as Wabash Cannon. That was the original name of it, by Winsome Games back in 2007. Chicago Express is not only a cube rail game, it is the original cube rail game when it was released back as Wabash Cannon in 2007. For those who aren't familiar, it won't surprise you to hear that cube rail games are almost always railroad themed. In fact, they probably are all railroad themed. But as opposed to more complicated like 18XX games, these tend to be much more stripped down affairs where you will often place cubes, hence the cube rail part of the name of the games, to indicate track presence instead of multi-directional track junction tiles that you have to like sort of make sure line up correctly. This is much more simplified. You just place a cube and you've got track there. Anyhow, in Chicago Express, you are going to bid on, develop, and expand 4 or 5 different train lines, each indicated by a different color. Let's go over those 3 things you can do, since they are literally the only 3 actions you have to choose from in the entire game. So you can put a share of a company up for auction. That's the first thing you can do. And that's pretty straightforward. You pick a company and then you start a regular round of bidding until all but one player drops out. So just standard bidding. Having a share of a company grants you 2 benefits. First, only shareholders of a company can lay track out for that train line. And second, whatever profit the company makes is split evenly between all the shareholders. So if there are 2 out of the 5 shares of Green that have been sold, and I own one and Kellen owns one, and it comes down to pay out Green, and Green has a $10 income, then he and I both get $5. That's the first thing you can do, put a share up for auction. Second thing you can do is expand a track. So, as I've said, only shareholders of a company can expand a track, can build track. But in addition to that, the money that you use to build that track comes solely from the money that was bid on that company for shares. So if you get that first share of the red line for cheap, sure, you got it for cheap, but you also won't have very much in the company coffers to do anything with it. So here's one of the many instances of shared incentives in Chicago Express, which is a game rife with it. Yes, Nealon's red line seems to be profitable, and I want in on it. However, I also don't necessarily want in on it for that cheap, because if it's not well capitalized, then we're not going to be able to grow it very much. But maybe that's what I want. Maybe I do want to tank his company. More about that later. Finally, the last thing you can do, in addition to putting up shares for bid or expanding a line, is to develop a spot on a board. This is simply picking a square out on the board that allows a building upon it, and then you, if you want to develop it, you just put a building on the spot. There's no cost. You just put it on there, and then the income of every line that is already on that hex or later enters it is raised. So it's a way to increase a company's income. And so here's another situation where you might want to own a share in, say, red, and then a share in blue, and have them converge somewhere, and then take a develop action to raise both of their incomes in one fell swoop. So that's another way that shared incentives can sort of work. Speaking of incomes, the one thing I didn't really touch on is how the trains increase their incomes. And that's, in addition to this developing action, moving along the board using the expand action, especially to the cities, and especially to Detroit and Chicago of Chicago Express, which are clear on the other side of the board. So if you can get to Chicago, you're really, really going to ramp up your income. Furthermore, though, that the number of track pieces that you can lay for each line is limited. And often going astray, even 1 or 2 spaces from heading to Chicago, will mean that you literally cannot make it to Chicago or Detroit and those big paydays. So if you want a company to really hit and make a lot of money in those 2 big cities, or any big city, you often want to make sure that you're staying the course and are heading that way. And so that's why I might want to wait until, for example, Nealon buys 2 shares of yellow. He thinks he's the king of yellow. He thinks he's got a clear shot to Chicago and all those riches, but he spent all his money to get that second share, and now I pick up the 3rd share for cheap and drive yellow into the forest, and now he's out of luck. So that's another aspect to the shared incentives and disincentives that you get in Chicago Express. The game does a lot of other interesting things, especially in terms of timing and pacing, and it does it all with this very streamlined rule set and plays in just about an hour. I don't know why the memory of my first play of Chicago Express was it being lukewarm. I just remember not really loving it. But boy, did I like my last couple plays of it. I've said it a bunch of times, but as much as I like heavy games, there's something that's really great about games that have a really straightforward, easily digestible rule set, and it just gets out of your way. And it's something I think you find at a higher percentage with a lot of these older titles that still are kicking around. I love how interactive this is and how much of the negotiation doesn't even need to be verbally communicated. It's like you form alliances when it suits you and it suits the other player, and then you break them as soon as it doesn't. And because everything's open information, there aren't any like gotcha surprises like, oh, I had this card and you shouldn't have teamed up with me because now I can backstab you. Though I can see, because of the open information, things crawling to a slower pace with players who want to calculate everything because, again, everything's open information.
All right, Mark.
Yeah.
Let's have our come to Jesus moment
Let's
together.
do it. I was waiting for this.
First of all, I think you're underestimating how heavy this is because, again, the open information, like while the actions may be straightforward, how that manifests itself to like a normal gamer in terms of like who owns what and how that all works it's not complicated.
Interesting.
It might be because you've played 100 million train games.
You know what? I actually disagree with you, I think, on this. I think this is like pretty gateway game. Like, I think you could play this with your family very easily with like non-gamers, but
hey guys, want to play a game about buying and selling train shares on the way to Chicago? Oh, like Monopoly, son?
oh, like
exactly.
Ticket to Ride, which
like
sold 10 million
Monopoly.
copies. Ticket to Ride, you ever heard of it?
Ticket to Ride?
Yes.
You want to put that in the same sentence as this?
I think it's pretty close.
Chicago
Look,
Express?
yes, I'm
Wabash
planting my flag
Canyon?
here. Wabash Canyon.
I've bought and sold this. Okay, the only reason I know this game is because I bought and sold it 2 times. Okay, because this game was famous on BGG for being on sale on Amazon for less than $10.
Okay.
I bought this in 2015 for $9.17.
Okay.
And I still got rid of it.
Did you play it?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay.
And actually, I'm curious.
The real turn there.
I'm very curious if it, because we talk about, what are these other ones? Iron Gauge? Like
Iberian.
the latest series of these, and I think they all sort of like, do they beat Chicago Express? And I think most of the time the answer is like no.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I think Chicago Express is the most straightforward, although I like the other Cube Rail games, and I don't think they're like way more complicated, but Chicago Express is super stripped down. And to my like earlier thing about playing with a family, like I think you could play this with a family. I don't think it's that hard to explain, but you'd have to like make sure to play, because you can play this game extremely cutthroat. But I also think you can play this where, like, you know, you sort of like are much more friendly. You're sort of like building and you're not like trying to like cut people off. So it depends on the crowd. It's not a game I guess would recommend for people to play with family, but I don't think it's something that is necessarily like out of bounds when it comes to that, because it's so simple and so quick. You're done in 45 to 60 minutes. Like, it's fast.
I will say that is the thing that intrigues me the most about cube rails in general, a genre I don't have nearly any experience in. But like my experience like in Iberian Gauge, for example, kind of that thing you described was like, oh yeah, you could have this pleasant, everyone's kind of working these lines together, or you can drive a train into the sun and like completely miss the line. And like I do love that it kind of flexes both ways. Would you say that that's like a staple of the genre, or just some?
Yeah,
some
I think so. I think the staples of the genre are railroad themed and simple in terms of like the geographical like aspect of it and buying stocks. But I think another staple would be what you're talking about, this whole like shared incentives sort of ability or opportunity.
Ugly boards, uninviting,
sure,
not appealing at all. Hey family, let's do this for Christmas. It's a spreadsheet.
I mean, Monopoly makes a lot of money and it's not exactly a lush production.
Let me tell you something, Mark.
Yes, sir.
You know what I saw the other day?
What's that?
Britney Spears Monopoly.
You were at my house?
I bought it again. Immediately.
Anyhow, that is Chicago Express by John Borer and Queen and Winston Games.
It's funny, like, I did not find the fun in Chicago Express back in the day, but, like, I now think I would just immediately, like, take to it.
That's exactly where I was on it. Like, exactly the same.
And I think I played the app a few times and also tried to understand the app. I'm sure the app is depreciated from a former life of board game apps, because it's from a different era, back when we were young.
As we take a little break for the Christmas holiday, we are going to be releasing our annual top 50 games of all time. So the next couple episodes you'll be hearing are going to be our top 50 games, 10 each episode, and then we will be back onto our regular podcasts after that. And wishing everybody a happy holidays.
You may be wondering why I didn't have a featured game in this episode, and that's because I have over 20 featured games in this episode because I play board games. And so I will go through them now for you to peruse, and then you guys can just tell me what you like or where you want me to stop. Okay?
Sounds good.
To warm up
Yeah.
vocal cords. Gangs of Dice, Take a Seat, Boast or Nothing, John Company, 2nd edition, The Green Fivura, a Shinzawa game, Nana, In Vito Morte, Hachi Train, Gangs of Dice,
Are these
again,
words?
American Bookshop, a Shinzawa game, Eastern State Penitentiary. Oh no, that was a recommendation from Ava on where to travel and visit. Bananine, Green Team Wins, Bananine again, Boast or Nothing again, Dick Demon.
Stop.
9 lives.
Stop.
Stop. Oh, wait. That's the first one you're interested in? Dick Demon?
Dick Demon?
Let me tell you something, Neelan. When you have to put this image in the episode, you're going to have to censor the image because there's a little demon on the cover. Please let me finish, okay? Troyes, Zolkin, 9 Lives, a Shinzawa game. Dois, a Shinzawa game. Bananine again. Dick Demon again. Games of Dice.
Can't have just one demon.
So, Neelan, obsessed with over here.
That's not the name of the game.
The name of that game, if you want to start there, I don't know why you're obsessed with this, Neelan, is Dick Demon. Okay, listen. I got a message on Discord, okay? It said, look, we have to play a game together before the con ends, and I've got just the one to show you. It's called Dick Demon. And get this, the best part of this is a really good game, and I actually think Mark is going to want to acquire it, like, immediately after we talk about it.
I mean, I already wanted it.
Okay, this is spelled Dicke space Damonen. I believe
Dicke.
Dyke Demon. I think it's Fat Demon in German. I could be wrong.
Yes.
Could
yeah,
be
that
wrong.
makes sense. Yeah, because that would be the same as Afrikaans. Duck Demon. I don't know.
In the game of Dick Demon, the players are magicians trying to rule the world. Curiously, the world is smaller than you might think. Okay?
Okay.
That's the game we're talking about. All right, this game came out in 2004, and the weird thing about it is that it's King is Dead and Turncoats adjacent, okay? You have string, okay? And you overlap 4 different colors of string to create a board in any way that you want. And those are creating area control pockets of intersections of colors. And then in the bag are meeples of those 4 colors, or little demons. And you take 4 of them out in your hand. You must place a color of a demon on the intersection where it exists. So if there's an intersection of these strings that are overlapped on top of each other that makes a little circle of 5 intersections, that area control space is worth 5 points to the color that controls the most intersections. So you can only place green meeples on green intersections, right? It'd be a green and red intersection, so either a green or a red meeple goes there. In addition to that, there are...
So you want to put your on a big intersection.
You want to have your colored on the most intersections within the biggest area of where the people are.
Okay. I call that a Tuesday night, but go ahead.
No, but Mark, seriously.
Okay, yes.
You're going to like this game.
Okay.
So you got 4 of them. You can only place 1 of them. There is also a white little demon meeple, and that guy can go in the center to stop anyone from adding any more to an area for area control. But the twist is that at the end of your turn, you can also commit to a color, and only one player can commit to each color, and that is your color for winning the game. And once you do that, instead of having a hand of 4 little to place out on the board, you only are drawing 1. And so your ability to impact the board goes from a very high to very low. And so I played this only at 2, but immediately, very good. Very good. Very easy to make, probably, as well. I think you could not find a new copy of this. I believe we were just playing with a Discord user's homemade copy. But Neelan, are you looking at the photo of this?
I am. Like, just how good it looks for just how simple the components are is lovely.
No, I'm saying, Mark, look at what I'm showing you right now. Yeah. Imagine that's going to be on our episode title, really large.
We cannot have that on the...
Yeah, we have to. So that is a great game. You should check it out. It's weird, and you have to make it on your own. But again, I was so appreciative, and I was like immediately like, can I add you as a geek buddy? You know, you're the man who showed me Dick Demon.
So the game that jumps out on your list there for me is John Company 2nd Edition. So I want to hear all about your experience with that.
You've played John Company 1st Edition.
I have, yes. And I have looked into the 2nd Edition, yeah.
Okay, so this is a Cole Worley special of PAX Premier, of Root, the complicated, right? And there's a historical thing. You're running the East India Trading Company, very like cynical and like what you're doing. Actually, I found out Cole Worley likes I'm the Boss, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot when you think about this game, John Company. So it's a game where you are all running the East India Trading Company together, and it has to be efficient, and everything is a negotiation, right? So you have a family. You're in job titles. You might be like the chairman. You might be the master, the director of trade, the manager of shipping. You might be the president of Bombay. Okay. You might also be the military leader of Bombay, in charge of the army of Bengal. And so all you're doing is going through this sort of really procedural process where the chairman works through, well, it's funny. I don't even... It is a very complicated, very long, hyper crazy game that I will surely get some of the rules wrong, even in this minor explanation of them. Each person has a different job. You're jostling to like do little actions that will help benefit the company, which is earning money, and then you, who needs to also earn victory points and sort of win amongst everyone who's running a great company. So like there's a board with a map. It is beautiful, and you know, you might be really able to help with a military attack in Bombay, but you may not be able to do trade routes on the other side of the country because there's 3 other players that are involved over there. But it's really, you're at the mercy of every other player, right? Like if you want to do a trade route in Bengal, and I'm pronouncing everything wrong, of course, there has to be ships in that Eastern Sea, but the manager of shipping, right, is the one that is buying ships in order to put them out there. And so you have to beg, borrow, or trade to force them to be incentivized to work with you. This game has the most elaborate stories. Our game was, I wanted you two there so badly. I wanted you two there so badly to witness me. Okay? Because I started the game, you get assigned like random stuff. Okay, I was the king of boats, right? I had 3 boats and a very little board presence, right? So that gave me a lot of money. That gave me a lot of votes as we were passing these new laws, right? And I passed a law, or helped pass with all my votes because of my many boats. I passed a law that made your shares in the main company worth more victory points and less victory points if that company failed, right? If the company fails, the game ends, and then whoever has the most points wins. And so there are certain roles like the chairman who care more about the company succeeding. And so everyone wants the company to succeed, kind of, but you want it to succeed and you to succeed the most. So there's a little bit of archipelago going on, right? So I helped pass the law with my many boats. Then I acquired a spouse, okay? I acquired a spouse that forced me to divest my shares. So I got out of the company. So I made the shares more important with the law, more important both positively and negatively. More positively if the company did well, more negatively if it failed. Then I got my spouse, which allowed me to divest all my shares. So suddenly I did not care about the company, right? I got one rich relative into a fancy-ass mansion that I had to pay $3 per turn to keep him there, which was giving me victory points. I proceeded to lose my entire board state. I had nothing on the board. I had no control of what was going on. My army members died in spectacular fashion, okay? I went on a mission with Klund out, I believe, in Bombay, right? I was his loyal infantryman in Bombay. We succeeded. I was ready to collect my money, but you have to roll a die to find out if you die. Literally, on 6, you die, and you get jack. I rolled a 6. I died. They got all the money. Everyone was happy. I had no board presence. But classic Kellen, I saw it, okay? You know what I saw? You know what I saw? I saw the fact that these idiots, okay, they think that I have no board presence, that I'm weak, but I also have no shares in the company, and all of these idiots have shares in the company. So if I can tank the game, right, A, the game is going to be less long because this is a long-ass game. Long-ass game, John Company, 2nd edition. B, if I tank the company right now, I actually think I might win. So I started a campaign amongst the people. I rallied the common people to say, well, we don't want him to win, right? Like, and he's got the most shares. Like, we got to keep this in line. And then I played a little pity party, right? Little Kellen pity party. Like, you know, guys, I don't, what am I even supposed to do? I don't have control
I've never heard of this happening ever in my life.
Yeah.
This is so unusual.
I don't have any pieces on the board. And you know what they did, Mark? They took pity on me. Okay?
Fools.
Yeah, and you know what they did?
What's that?
These idiots made me the governor of Bombay, right? They had no reason to do that. Okay, this is not the president. This is not in charge of the army. Like, after we'd subjugated the people of Bombay, which is sad, but I don't know, they were like, Kellen, we'll let you be the governor so you have something to do.
Sure.
And the game is like, well, you can tax the people, but then the unrest comes, you know, and it might hurt the company, and then you can just keep doing that. So I kept taxing the people over and over again as the governor of Bombay, tanked the game ended, Kellen won the game.
Amazing.
Yes.
So it sounds like you had a very good time.
I did. I think this is one of the most niche products I've ever played in my life. Like, the die rolls were like super random.
Because that was my biggest problem with John Company 1. I was not hoping, because if people like it, then that's great. But that was my biggest issue with the 1st edition. And then the 2nd edition was released or was coming out, I looked into that, and it seems like it's the same sort of deal in that case. So
I would say that it was, for me, it's like Cosmic Encounter / I'm the Boss for PAX players.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
interesting.
It's a party game, and those stories were really fun. I would have played it again. Again, like, there was a lot of learning, and the rules are hard. And what we did is we played the first round as if it was just a co-op. Like, we were just trying to help each other, like, run the company efficiently, and then you can see how to run it inefficiently, which I thought was very smart. Yeah, so a huge thank you to everyone who played in that game, and Mr. Wall Wilson of the Discord for teaching it. I wanted to play it again. There just wasn't enough time. Very good game. I don't know who it's for, but it is for people, right? Because people are buying it. I have a copy. I kickstarted it, so we'll see. Yeah, it's just so long.
I mean,
so long.
I think if we can get past, like, you know, how much it would take to, like, set up and get played, I mean, I would love to try it. Like, even though I have, like, this only fleeting interest in the stuff that Whirly's done in the past, that sounds really cool. I assume that what you're saying about the Cosmic Encounter style is just, like, how much power each of these rolls has, right? Like, in the...
Yeah, and the randomness, right?
Well, it's the randomness, it's the negotiation, it's the, like, I'll trade you, you know, like, there's this idea of nepotism where, like, you know, a lot of times you're deciding who becomes the next president of Bombay, and, like, you can't just make it your guy if there's another guy there. But if you have their approval, you can do that. So you can try to get money from them. But they also have a card that says, like, ignore my nepotism requirement.
Okay,
so
sure.
Someone traded that to me, and then I traded it to someone else. Like, I'm like, I don't care about your nepotism, but this person does. So there's just that sort of freewheeling and dealing and silly stories that are being told throughout the game.
Cool.
This was the week of trick taking. And I think that is codename 01 on the Discord. Sheha, thank you. But geez, we played every trick taker, and some that haven't even been translated into English yet. So there's a little bit of a drop. We played the Green Fivura by Shinzawa. That is a new trick-taking game where every card could be the card that's on the front, or it could be a green 5 on the back. Every card is a green 5.
Okay.
That's the conceit. If you want to play it as a green 5, you can play it as a green 5. And you are trying to add up your tricks to get to 25, but no higher than that. Very silly, very interesting, worth trying, for sure. We also played a very old Shinzawa game called Dois, D-O-I-S. This is a trick-taking game where you have so many cards in your hand, and half of them are suit cards, and half of them are number cards. And in the first round, you play one of each to determine what you're playing. And then in every subsequent hand, you can only play one or the other. So you're either changing the number of a suit that you already have out, or you're changing the suit and keeping the number, which was super mind-melding, but delightful. And we played a ice cream-themed version, which I was assured is not the real version, but was definitely worth checking out. Man, Shinzawa's good, right? Have you guys played 9 Lives? That's hot. That's new. That's a Board Game Tables release. 9 Lives. Nealon?
I don't think so.
This is a cat game, okay? Unique cat art on every card in 9 Lives. In 9 Lives, again, another trick taker. Again, how many trick takers does one person need? I don't know. I think the answer is should be 5 or less, but that is not what Cheha thinks. In 9 Lives, you are bidding, and you're bidding on a board for how many tricks you can take, and it's similar to Ghost of Christmas, which I believe is another Shinzawa game where if you bid exactly, you score more points than if you bid sort of like a range. But your cat is actually blocking ranges from other players, so if you bid 1 to 2, then someone else on that side of the board has to bid either 4 or 1, which is a weird conceit. And then the second weird conceit in 9 Lives is that you must pick up a card in the trick that you won. So you can't go out as quickly as you want to. And like the exact amount of tricks becomes really variable, because if you win with a trump card, you have to pick up a card that you didn't perhaps want. And now the variable amount of tricks makes it really hard to get your precise bid. This has a lovely new game from Board Game Tables, and I have this one as well and didn't play my copy, but absolutely rock solid, and one that I'm excited that I own. But again, speaks to the question of like, how do I interpret this in the context of American Bookshop, which is just like stone cold classic.
Sure.
I don't know, guys. What's the best trick taker?
Well, I think it's funny because I mentioned recently like having only recently discovered the joy in trick taking, and I'm now discovering that most of that is through Shinzawa, you know, like having played Masked Men and American Bookshop and Ghost of Christmas, and like seeing these little twists on it. Like for me personally, and someone that, you know, doesn't have a lot of scope in my life to play these games on the regular, I enjoy finding the systems and discovering the systems, but again, like how many of them do you need to own? I don't know. I would probably gravitate towards the best one for me personally.
All right, guys. So I do this thing at cons now, okay? And by do this thing, I mean this is the first time I've done it, but now it's a thing, okay?
Okay.
As all good things are, codified, right? I wrote it in my diary, right? You guys do BG stats so that you can always remember, you know, how many points you lost to me in TWA, and I write in a diary because I have thoughts that people will want to remember and read someday. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. That's right.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And just remember that you are enabling this. And that is that I decided to take a flyer, right? One of the joys of board gaming that I have like gotten away from is just the straight not knowing if a game will be good or not, and like knowing too much about what's coming out and having too much access to research and other people who've played these games, or some preconceived notions of a designer, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, I want to buy a game, you know, based on nothing. And I wanted it to not have reviews on BGG, you know. And again, I guess I maybe cheated because I bought a Japanese imported game. So the last game that I'd love to highlight here is called BANANINE. And I would say, actually, this is, if I had to say game of the con, it might be BANANINE. I was going to do a joke with this where I only talked about it in questions, but then I really figured that that wasn't going to be possible. Like, I'd be like, would you be interested in a game with a banana on every card?
I would.
How do you think a game like that would work?
Whoever has the most bananas wins.
How do you get the bananas into your score pile?
I think it's a dexterity game where you just try to like, snatch them out of the other player's hands.
Are you confused?
Yes.
All right, and you can see why this didn't work. I did this in the shower for a few minutes. I'm like, I just don't think we're going to get there. I don't think it'll be valuable content for the people. Bananine is a game that makes me think about accessibility. And I'm being really serious, which is to say that this game takes 10 minutes to play. 10 minutes to play. It plays 2 to 5 people, and it can be explained in like a minute and a half. So at the con, whenever there was downtime, whenever something didn't sync, I was like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to play Bananine, okay? And in this game, you get a hand of a lot of bananas. You use those bananas to buy bananas from a market of bananas, and then the banana cards that you buy from the market of bananas go into your score pile. And that's the whole game, right?
Okay.
And you might say, what? How does that work? And I would say, yes, that's true. So the way that the game works is that in a 2-player game, you actually have a hand of 21 cards, which I don't understand. And then when you get to 5, your hand is only 9 cards. But let's say there's a 7 and a 6 in the marketplace, right? You can never put a card from your hand directly into your score pile, right? It always has to filter through the market. So if Nealon wants to buy a 7 in the market, he has to use different value bananas to buy that. So he can't buy it with a 7 card. He could buy it with a 5, a 2. He could buy it with a 4 and a 3. He could buy it with 7 1s. And those cards would go into the market, and then he would take the 7, and that would go into his score pile. But what makes this really interesting is that there's a way disparate amount of how many 7 banana cards there are. And the way that the game scores is whoever has the most 1 banana cards gets 2 points. Whoever has the most 2 banana cards gets 2 points. 3 gets 3 points. So each value of banana is worth the same, but there are 12 1-value banana cards. And in the 7s, I believe there's only like 3. And so the value of what you want to acquire and how you want to acquire it is hard. And then as people start amassing arrays of stuff, you don't want to spend your cards that they're going to be able to get. And there's some cool little things to help you with that. So if Nealon puts a 3 into the market and then Mark buys a different card with a 3, that 3 will stack on the other 3. So then you will buy that stack of bananas for 6.
Okay.
But if a stack ever gets over 10, it's automatically seppuku'd out of the whole game. And so that means that you can sometimes buy something that you want and, up Mark's game by like getting out the cards that he wants to buy. This is delightful. It was expensive and, it's hard. I want to support, I love the art on this game. I don't know if you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Beautiful card art, bananas on every card. What more can you say? It says banana on every card, okay? Nice texture. I think that everyone I played enjoyed it. Again, I don't know if it's amazing, but it's interesting. I think that I preferred it at 3. 2 was a little silly with the amount of cards that you have in your hand. 5 was just insanity, chaos, reign supreme. Yeah. I didn't have a chance to play it at 4-player, but I think a delightful, a delight. I loved it. Yeah. Bananine. I don't know what the 9 in Bananine means, but it's there.
Does it go up to 9 bananas on a card? Or?
Yeah. That would be funny if it did.
Oh, it does. It does go up to 9 bananas.
Oh, okay. Well,
and that's another cool thing is the 9 cards. So there's a separate little stack of cards. This is the last wrinkle, right? You've already been taught the game. There's a separate stack of cards that when you seppuku out a set or when something goes above 10, that you replace it with one from that stack. And so the 9s only exist within that special stack. So if a 9 comes out, you really want to grab it. But it also has a couple of 7s in there that can screw up the standard distribution of them. Just really cute. Again, I don't think it's going to set the world on fire. I think it's beautiful to look at. And I think as this convention filler for me, I just had hit after hit. I was like, yeah, we're playing this. Yeah, we're playing this. Everybody was bananining. I got people to buy it right there. And again, this is a very small card game, and it was $30. But again, that's because they're just directly importing it. Right. I think this is from Big Cat Games, is just buying them at the Tokyo Game Market. So really liked it. Glad I own it. I'm excited to show you guys Bananine.
That's awesome. Great. Sounds really cool. Yeah.
And that is going to do it for today's episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I will tell everybody off the record what people said about you at PAX after we turn off the episode. But thank you so much for listening. You can find us on all forms of social media. You can email us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com with episode topics, show suggestions, things we could improve. You can talk to us in Discord, boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. You can buy a t-shirt, except I don't know the link at which you can do so, but they exist, and they were lovely, and I was so happy to see people wearing them at PAX Unplugged. Thank you for everyone who gamed with me there. I was a lost soul, an agent of chaos, and the governor of Bombay. Thank you to Heart Society Music for the intro and outro music. What's on Your Mind Kid from their album Waking Queens. You can't find them anymore because they don't have a web presence because the band broke up many years ago. This podcast has still been going for 5 years. Thank you so much. Good evening and good night.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
And I gave you the list, and for instance, one of the games on the list is called Dick Demon.
Okay, that's Nealon.
That was a spelling mistake.
Nealon would pick that one.
Well, it's German for Dike Demon, which is fat demon, but everyone calls it Dick
So
Demon.
Nealon asks about Dick Demon, and then you correct him.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
Okay,
then
so what do I do?
Well, it's so it's kind of like, here's what we'll do, right? Okay. It'll be like, I'll make fun of you guys for not being at PAX because, sort of had to champion. And then I'll be like, and then I played, and then I'll just list every game I played, in listicle format.
Right.
And then we'll just sort of, meander around.
As soon as you say Dick Demon, Nealon jumps in. Tell me more about Dick Demon. So on and so forth.
And that's quality content.
Yeah, that's comedy gold. That's gold.
Sorry, what games? Oh, Nealon is talking about Air, Salt, and Sea.
Yeah, that's it. It is Sea, Salt, and Paper.
That's actually way closer than I thought. I'm doing Chicago Express.
Oh. All right. I'm out of breath by playing and champion so many board games. Nealon, kick us off with Sea, Salt, and Pepper.
Oh, that's even better. I'm actually going to take a glass of water. Sorry. I got morning mouth. That's no good over here. Okay. Yeah, Sea, Salt, and Paper, which is... it's a... Thank you.
Cool. Should I jump in?
Yeah, am I supposed to introduce you?
You don't have to. Whatever. It's fine.
People know who you are.
People know me.
Mark, but
People know me by the voice alone.
Yeah, if you want me to wave my hands around, and again, this is not a video podcast, so I don't know how many times I can tell you that you could just...
It's so hard for me to understand that part of it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I know. It's been a few years, but
am I on
close.
TV or am I not on TV? That's the part I don't really get. I feel like I should be on TV at this point.
I feel like we all thought we were on TV until right now. That's right, Kellen? That's what you promised us?
I promise we'll make it one day, boys.
There you go. Perfect. Okay. So after a long